Curious George in the snow. And today we're going to be with Amy the monkey. He's going to help us read the book. This is George. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. One cold day, George went to a winter sports competition with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. They were outside all morning and wanted to warm up with a hot drink. At a ski lodge at the top of the mountain, the man said, "George, why don't you wait at this table while I get some hot chocolate? I'll be right back, so don't get into any trouble." George liked being on top of the mountain. There was so much to see. Why, there was something interesting. George thought it looked like a spaceship. He was curious. What was a spaceship doing on a mountain? George forgot all about waiting for the hot chocolate. And climbed in. A man in a racing suit said that they were doing in my sled. He tried to stop George, but it was just too late. The sled shot down on the mountain, and George inside. This is no spaceship, thought George. This is a rocket. "Stop that monkey," the man yelled, but George could not stop, and there was no one on top of him. He sped faster and faster through the snow. Suddenly, the sled slipped sideways, and George didn't know how to steer. The sled swooshed through some trees and whacked into a pole. Luckily, George was not hurt, but this was not what it was supposed to be. Now, how would this get into the mountain? George looked at the sled. It was stuck by the pole, and looked at the pole. Now he could see how a little monkey could get into the top of the mountain. George climbed the pole, and when an empty seat came close enough, he jumped. What a view from up in the air. George could see everything. As he rode up in the mountain, he watched tiny skiers race down. Then he reached to the top. George was happy to see the ski lodge. This was where he was supposed to be. George found the table, but he couldn't find the man with a yellow hat. Where could he be? George looked down in the mountain. There was something who looked like his friend. Maybe his friend was going down to get George. But how could George get down the mountains this time? If only he had another sled. Wow, there was a monkey-sized sled. George took the sled down and gave himself a push. The sled was quick and picked up speed in the speed mountain. George zigzagged his way through the way, then another way altogether. He flew over a hill and landed on the spaceway. "It's a monkey," yelled the boy, and crowd steered. "Look out, little monkey!" someone yelled from the crowd. But George was going so fast that the wind roared in his ears. He could not hear, but George could see. He was a skier right in front of him. Could he stop? No, the crowd gasped as George crashed the skier and flew up in the air. The skier tumbled and the skier snapped right in half when George came down. He landed bouncy. He kept going. The crowd was amazed. He was doing, they asked, if he's skiing. He is sledding. His surfing is in the snow, said a boy. George sailed down the mountain and came up to a smooth stop. What a show! The crowd cheered, took a bow. No one had seen skiing like this before. When the skier arrived, everyone was glad to see that he was not hurt, and they cheered for him, too. Soon, the man in the yellow hat arrived. He was glad to find George. George was glad to find his friend. The man with the yellow hat managed through the noisy crowd to apologize for the skier. "I'm sorry George caused so much trouble." "That's okay," said the skier. "I still have another race and another pair of skis." Then he said, "That was skiing, George." Later that day, the skier raced again and won. It was a new record. The crowd went wild. They were still cheering when the skier found George at the finish line. "Thanks to you, George," the big crowd cheered me on. "I couldn't have won without them or you." He lifted George to his shoulders, and the crowd cheered once more. To his favorite monkey cheer. Cheer, George. The end. So, Amy, did you like that? I think so. Here. Ooh. Little friends. Oh. Slide down. All right.